In June 1942, the Pacific Ocean became the stage for one of the most decisive battles in naval history. Just 6 months earlier, Japan had struck a devastating blow at Pearl Harbor, hoping to cripple the United States. But America survived, and now the two powers were preparing for a clash that would decide the future of the war. After a series of victories across the Pacific, Japan believed it could destroy what remained of the U.S. fleet by attacking a small, remote outpost called Midway. The plan was bold: lure American aircraft carriers into a trap and eliminate them once and for all. If successful, Japan would dominate the Pacific. But there was one problem. The Americans already knew the plan. U.S. codebreakers, led by Commander Joseph Rockford, cracked the Japanese naval codes. They discovered that AF, the target of Japan's operation, was Midway. Thanks to this intelligence breakthrough, the Americans knew when and where the Japanese would strike. Admiral Nimitz made a daring decision. Instead of reacting, he would ambush the ambushers. He positioned 3 American carriers, USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, and USS Yorktown, north of Midway, waiting in silence for the Japanese fleet. On June 4th, the battle began. Japanese aircraft launched the first strike, heavily damaging the airfield on Midway Atoll. But Midway's defenders fought back fiercely with outdated planes, buying precious time. Meanwhile, the U.S. carriers launched waves of torpedo bombers. These early attacks were costly. Nearly all the American torpedo bombers were shot down by Japanese fighters. Not a single torpedo hit its target. The skies over Midway were filled with smoke, flames, and falling aircraft. But their sacrifice changed everything. While the Japanese fighters were drawn low to fight the torpedo bombers, 3 squadrons of American dive bombers arrived at 10,000 feet, unnoticed, undisturbed. Below them, the Japanese carriers Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu were in the worst possible state, decks crowded with refueling aircraft, bombs and torpedoes scattered about, fuel hoses everywhere. It was the most vulnerable moment in naval warfare. At 10:20 a.m., the American dive bombers struck. In just 5 minutes, 3 Japanese carriers were engulfed in explosions and firestorms. The ships that had attacked Pearl Harbor were now burning wrecks. Japan still had 1 carrier left, the Hiryu, which launched a counterattack that damaged the USS Yorktown. But American forces found Hiryu that afternoon and destroyed it with another devastating bombing run. By sunset, all 4 Japanese carriers were gone. Midway was not just a battle, it was a turning point. Japan lost its best pilots and its most powerful carriers, losses it would never fully recover from. The United States, on the other hand, seized the initiative and began pushing across the Pacific. The Battle of Midway showed the power of intelligence, daring leadership, and extraordinary courage. It marked the moment when the tide of World War II shifted, when the United States moved from defending itself to taking the offensive. What began as Japan's most ambitious plan became the disaster that reshaped the Pacific War. This was Midway, the battle that changed everything.